Welcome back to the Daily Grind. I'm your host, Mark, and that is not Luke. It's not
Better
Luke.
version.
Better version of Luke. Daniel Greer is with me today, host of 901 Grizz, the post-game show right here at Bluff City Media. Daniel, Luke has got the flu. He's been out since last Friday. I was out last week too, so it's been a while since we've had a show. We've missed 2 days, which is unlike this show a lot. But excited to get back to it. Excited to talk to you today about the Grizzlies weekend. Since we didn't have a show yesterday, we're going to talk all about the Grizzlies weekend, which they were for a moment in time on a winning streak. For a short, I was telling all the friends I knew how the Grizzlies were on a winning streak. I didn't say how long the winning streak was, but I did say it was a winning streak. Yeah, it was a fun weekend. I thought going 1-1 is probably the best you could hope for.
Yeah. You can't go down losing both. Like, you had to figure out a way to win and split those. If you're going to get every win, gives yourself a chance to actually make the playoffs at this point. One more win gives you 6. I think it's doable from there. So yeah, any win just keeps helping you.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Luka for having his kid over the weekend. We all in Memphis appreciate that. Some might say, well, the Mavs weren't at full strength. How dare you revel in victory on that win? You know what? The Grizzlies don't have any fucking players at all. So that's how I revel. It's about time it's about time we get to play someone who isn't at full strength. It's about time. That's all I say.
Listen, it took forever. Like, we played everybody at full strength. Finally, we get somebody that has some bad luck and they don't hit every shot. That's a bonus. We'll take it.
It felt great. It really did feel great. And before we get into the games themselves, I just want to mention that the Grizzlies now have a top 10 defense. They are 10th right now. They are 10th right now in defensive rating. And so the defense is really honestly only continued to get better. The more we and I think this is probably will lead us into the weekend. But the Suns, that Suns game, down the stretch, the Suns did everything they could to let the Grizzlies get back into it in that fourth quarter. Early in the fourth quarter, the defense was working. I mean, the defense was doing everything they needed to do. The Grizzlies, again, I think we probably said it on our show. You said it on your show. The Grizzlies just can't hit shots. Just had no one to make shots early in that fourth quarter to really cut the deficit from 11 or 12 down to what really manageable numbers. And then flip side of that, in that fourth quarter, it was a lot of you couldn't stop them and you could make shots. It was trading buckets. But early in that fourth quarter, the Grizzlies defense did everything they were supposed to do. The offense just didn't hold up there into the bargain. But I thought that Phoenix game, even playing them at full strength, that's a loss that, like, in a normal scheme of things, forget about the season, the 5 wins. That's a loss I'm good with, right? Like, I'm fine with that loss because you looked good. Like, you continue to play your game. Like, sometimes those are just ones. Sometimes you lose against a good team, and that's okay. In the grand scheme of things. So, like, you take everything away from all that, everything else besides that Phoenix loss. So you strip everything away and just watch that game. Like, that's a game I'm totally cool with. And I think, it was a great game. It was fun to watch. And sometimes you get an L.
Well, and you look at the game, like, it was 109 points, one more than you scored the previous night. So it's on a back-to-back. You're putting up the same numbers, but you're also only getting 7 points in the first 3 quarters from Desmond Bane. And he finishes with 27, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you're only getting 7 points total in the first 3 quarters, leaves a lot to be desired, but also allows you to say, hey, we have a chance to be good, especially if he plays above average or average the first 3 quarters. Then you're talking about you take a little bit back from the fourth and then you average it out. He's going to have a better game overall. And so it is what it is. Jaren looked dominant. And that was what I took away, is he finally looked like he put his big boy pants on and decided, hey, I'm 7 foot and I can dominate.
Yeah. He best game of the season for him, I think.
By far.
That is something that we've talked about on the show, is that I wish Jaren always realized that he's better than most people, right? Like, these dudes just cannot stop him. Like,
they can't.
They're in most games, and we've seen, other than maybe throw out, the Anthony Davis game where he really, got dominated by Anthony Davis, and that happens. It took its Hall of Fame player, but most games, if you look at the matchup, you can get to the rim no matter what,
Yeah.
as you want to get to it. And I think what he has struggled with, not only this year but in past years, is realizing double teams, seeing them early, and
Yeah.
understanding when teams are going to bring it, right? And I thought he's done a much better job so far this year, seeing them early, and passing out of it. Or a lot of times he'll see the double team come and he'll spin the other way and getting that, usually he spins left, usually he spins left, getting that spin going to the right as well, and be able to finish with the left hand. Those are some things that little things that you can see that he's still working on, still getting better. And those are what really sets you apart as a superstar, kind of elite player, is no matter what that defense does, being able to get into your spots and get into your rhythm. It's Brevin said this on, I hit my Brevin repeat said something on the broadcast, that elite players, like, you can never take them out of rhythm. And that is something that Jaren gets taken out of rhythm all the time. But I think it's just, I think you're right. I think it's just a mental thing for him.
Yeah.
I really do. It almost feels like I'm too nice. I'm like too of a nice. Like, I don't want to dunk on you that much.
Yes. It's the opposite of Ja. Like, that's exactly what it is. Like, Ja wants to end you, and he wants to take your soul. And Jaren wants to build your soul and bring life into you. It's opposite.
He wants to be as nice as he can,
Yeah.
But I thought but again, best game by far. But I think you're right. A little bit of too much Desmond too late, or too little Desmond too early, I guess. That and they just didn't have anybody else. They just don't. I think every one of these games, while Ja Morant's out, who, by the way, when Ja Morant's out, I don't think people forget you're missing 30 points.
Yeah.
Like, right there. Like, yeah, you might get, you're going to take some shots away from Desmond and Jaren, but so you're maybe not missing net 30, but you're still missing 30 points from Ja Morant. So while he's out, I mean, every night there's going to have to be a Santi. There's going to have to be a somebody other than Jaren and Desmond that can score the ball. On Friday, we saw it was Jaylen Nowell.
Right.
And, he had 8 points on Saturday. So,
yeah. That's the difference. You look at Jaylen Nowell, since the last 2 games, he's taken a combined 26 shots. He took 12 in one game and 14 in the other. And so if you look at that, like, he was cooking in the Dallas game at 8 of 14, but he was cooking and only took 2 more shots compared to 3 and 12 when he wasn't so hot. I think that's the guy you look at when Ja gets back. He's the guy you're going to take. Let's say you take 4 from him and he gets him to 8 to 10 shots a game. Santi right now is taking 10 plus shots a game. Take 2 away from him, you start making you get the better players, the better shots, right? And so you're not going to have 20 plus a game from Jaren, but that's okay. Like, you can take shots away from other people and you instantly get better as long as they're going to Ja Morant, and which they will be 100%. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. Ja Morant's going to shoot 15, 18 times every game, no matter what. Like, that's minimum. So again, life will get better when Ja returns. There's no doubt about that. And for a while there, I questioned how much he was going to fix, because, we saw the defense was a real problem
Right.
early on. And now, it has come to life a bit. And I think we saw that the past couple of years, where the defense has really tightened up over, the December, January months. And so now I waver, like, how much Ja is going to correct, but I think he's going to correct a lot of things, because right now the problem with the Grizzlies is they just can't score.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys know about this, but Ja Morant can score the ball very, very rapidly and freely. I don't know. Like spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, talking about the defense, like, the Grizzlies are, like you just said, they are now top 10. But if you look at it, defense comes down to 3 things. It's energy, effort, communication. They literally were putting in dudes that aren't good enough to play on the NBA level. So that obviously is going to lack communication. there's going to be some energy there. It wasn't there. The effort's probably been there, but it hasn't been as much as it is now. And so energy, effort, and communication are all the best version of themselves this season as they have been. And so it's only going to get better. And I would imagine when Ja gets back, the communication is going to even turn up more. I'm not saying he's a defensive guy, but he's obviously going to be a vocal leader. And so at that point, you start feeling better, you make some shots, and then everything else picks up from there.
The other thing I would add to that for defense is IQ. Like knowing where to be off the ball, right? When you're supposed to be there. Like, it's a very underrated skill set of knowing where to be off the ball or where not to be off the ball. Knowing, and I think that's true for all sports. It's something I learned when I played soccer in college. It is the idea of what you should be doing when you don't have the ball, right? Where should you be when you don't have the ball? And that's, in the NBA, it's offense and defense, but defense for really truly is knowing where you should be when we're in relation to the ball, right? If the ball's on the strong side, where should you be on the weak side? And so to your point, a lot of guys in that rotation did not have the defensive IQ to be in that rotation. Right. And I would say since the Grizzlies have, I would say, tightened a little bit their rotation of Santi, Vince Williams, Jalen Noel, and Xavier Tillman off the bench, it's been better. I mean, Jalen Noel is a real live bench play. He's played in this league for 3+ years. So this is, he's not like he's not a player. And yes, he was on the street, right? But it's not like he hasn't done this before at a high level. And Vince Williams Jr. obviously is a really good defender, a plus defender. And so, I think that getting those players back and again, limiting your players who don't belong, as nice as that sounds, it's just, that's the reality. And something we talked about on the show before is that the problem has always been is that your guys that are, 10, 11, 12 guys are now your 6, 7, 8 guys. Right. And that's as much as we don't want to that's the simple excuse is that is just the truth. And it's always been since the season started, we haven't seen this team at full strength at all. I mean, obviously Ja's not here, but even with Ja, I haven't seen this team so we have no idea what this team is. And so it happens when you have your 10, 11, 12 guys playing 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. Well, it lowers your ceiling tremendously. And I think we're going to see that. We're going to talk about that in the next segment, obviously, but I'm curious to see what this looks like going forward, because as guys continue to get healthy, and then when Ja gets back, the decisions to make around Biyombo and Jalen Noel, they're all coming to head, I believe, on the 14th to the 19th. So that little stretch of time, we're going to find out a lot of what's going to happen and who's here to stay, who's going to be gone. I'm excited about that part because I want to see the decisions the front office makes. Are they going to go for it? Are they going to make some really strong decisions? Or are they going to say, hey, we're going to live with what we have?
Speaking of that, let's take a quick break. We'll talk about the roster crunch right after this. Just like Daniel alluded to, they got a lot of decisions to make. We'll go through the roster crunch, what they have to do, who's leaving, who's coming, all that stuff. Take a quick break. Be right back on the other side.
I am highly upset, man.
Oh, man.
ESPN, you dastardly dogs you. Last week had us feeling good. They picked the Grizzlies to be first in the West with about 48.5 wins. And what a difference a few days makes.
What a difference.
You put out your list of the top 100 players in the NBA. Desmond Bane jumps in at 61. Jaren Jackson Jr. comes in at number 31. Jaren's top 25 to me, but if you all right, whatever. I think that's a little slight to Jaren. Desmond Baines is disgusting, in my opinion. But then we get Ja Morant, all-NBA player, 2-time All-Star, one of the most dynamic offensively players in the NBA, Ja Morant. That guy was number 35 on their list, Kenny Stubblefield. The same people that said the Grizzlies will be the first team in the West, they're going to get that done with just some regular dudes.
Tune in to The Anthony Sane Show, Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Just curious, you kind of talked about the transfers and things like that. How has that changed your mindset from a roster management standpoint? Incredible recruiter. All the classes, I think we had 2 back-to-back and 21 and 22 top classes. How does that change with the transfer portal? Do you start focusing more on upperclassmen? Do you kind of get away from the younger freshmen? How does that work?
Yeah, so I still believe in our coaching staff and the way we do things and developing guys. And that I will never get away from that philosophy. We're still going to recruit a high school class. Now, there's a lot of colleges out there that say, screw this. We're pushing all the chips in on this roster, win right now, and we'll figure it out. Sure. And if it doesn't, right, it implodes and bad things happen. But I think you still have to bring in true freshmen and develop them and see what they can become. And that I'll never waver from that. But the portal certainly changed things.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Welcome back to the Daily Grind. A Grizzlies show happens every single day right here on Bluff City Media on the YouTube page. This is the time of the show. Little shameless promotion time. If you're not already a Bluff City Media Insider, make sure you go and do so. It's super easy, super affordable, and super awesome. You get all kinds of cool stuff, access to our Discord. You get 20% off our merchandise, which, by the way, you can get this cool hat. I'm rocking all kinds of merchandise. I get this cool shirt, this hoodie, all things on the Bluff City Media store. And the last day to order is December 10th to get it by Christmas. To make sure you get it by Christmas, still ensure that you have a Christmas present. So this is the time for giving. You can get a subscription to Bluff City Media Insider. You can get some stuff, from merch, all kinds of good stuff. So if you're not already doing that, make sure you go do so. It's $5 a month. And if you're not doing that, just go subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's free. It helps us continue to do these shows and supports the channel. All right, let's get back to the show. Enough of that. Enough promotion. We get it. Trying to sell stuff. Look, as the boss, I got to do my part, right? If I'm not doing my part, why are we even here? The roster crunch. So just like you alluded to, the Grizzlies got to make some decisions soon. They made a decision over the weekend. They not let Shaq Harrison go. They just did not re-sign Shaq Harrison to a second 10-day contract, which they are allowed to do. I would assume in anticipation of someone returning from the disabled player exception. So they have two of those, or excuse me, not the hardship waivers.
Yeah,
they have two of those. So the way it works is every when you have 4 players out for 2 more weeks, you get one. You have 5 players, you get another. And when those players come back, you have to release the players or just make a decision. You don't have to release. You can release anybody you want. But the players we'll be looking at coming back will be Luke Kennard, Marcus Smart, and Jake LaRavia. And I would say they have anticipation of one of those coming back. And I don't know who it would be because Jake LaRavia had like a surgery or something, didn't he?
Like an eye laceration or something.
Like an eye surgery. That guy's the weirdest injuries. Like the weirdest injuries. I guess I assume Marcus Smart, but I don't think he's that. It's too early for him to come back too. So I'm not really sure who they. Maybe Zaire now. Zaire Williams is just out for illness. Yeah. So those are the only 3 players that count towards that. Is I believe Jake, Luke, Marcus Smart. Of course, they have Steven Adams and Brandon Clark. They still count towards that hardship waiver. So again, they have Ja counts. Ja's not count. He's not injured. Yeah,
okay,
Ja does not count.
If it counts.
Yeah. So the 5 guys that are injured are Steven, Brandon, Luke, Marcus, or excuse me, yes, Steven, Brandon, Luke, Marcus, and Jake. So
yeah.
when one of those guys comes back, they cannot have they lose it essentially. So
right.
So that's how it works. I know it was a lot to say a little, but what are your thoughts on Jaylen Nowell? What are your thoughts? I know that he has one good game on Friday. People want to keep him for the rest of the year, and I say let's temper your expectations. He was on his couch 2 weeks ago.
Right. Yeah. So what I look at Jaylen Nowell is he is a bucket. Like he's gonna go shoot. Like that's what he's doing. He's wearing the number 24 for a reason. He reminds me so much of Dylan Brooks. He's going to catch
I was going to say the same thing.
Late shot clock grenades. And I know he has to do something and create. He is a player that this team needs for the simple fact that you bring him off the bench. If he's hot, you ride with him. And if he's cold, you go away from him. But he doesn't live in a box similar to what Roddy and LaRavia and even Vince do. Like they are their player. Like they're in this box. They're not going to get too far out of it. They're not going to get too creative. Like they are that person. Jaylen Nowell is not that person at all. He's going to hurt you sometimes. He's going to help you sometimes. He's not going to just keep your level playing field. And so I like that player. I think he's very instrumental in this team being really good because he can play alongside a guy who can create like Derrick Rose. But Derrick Rose, we can't count on him to be over 15 to 18 minutes a game. So you have to bring somebody else that can go and create a little bit when you have Jaren in the game, because Jaren is not an offensive threat. So it's either going to be Ja or Bane. And if it's neither one of them on the court, then you need a guy like Jalen Noel.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was going to say something. He's a poor man's Dylan Brooks, for sure. He's a shot chucker. And so he's in that vein of Dylan Brooks and Jordan Poole, and he's just not as good as those guys.
No.
I will say that he is a guy that I think even when he's not shooting, he can, if he's motivated, he can help you, right? If he's motivated, he can still have an impact on the game, even without making shots. And that's what you need. You have people like out there, when you were running, Jake LaRavia out there and Kenny Lofton, if they weren't doing the one thing, they weren't helping. Right. Especially like Jake LaRavia. He's not making shots. He's not helping at all. And he's dismal on defense. And Kenny Lofton is the same. If he's not making shots, he's not any kind of awesome player. He's not helping you. And I thought, John Contra, the same thing. John Contra, if he's not, really rebounding and you're playing good defense, he doesn't really help you. And he doesn't do that a lot, and that's obviously the mark of, that's the problem with all of the players at the lower levels of the NBA, is that there's just no consistency. Right. And that's also why Jalen Noel, while he might be a good shooter, and when he's a hot, it's just that hot comes every 6 game, and that's tough when you're an NBA team. You need reliability. And so, yeah, I like Jalen Noel. The problem with him is if you want to keep him, it's not just a 1-for-1 in this situation. You have to, let people go. You have 15 spots are all filled. Bismack Biyombo, but when Ja comes back is when you have to make a decision on Bismack Biyombo. I feel fairly certain that's going to be just Kenny Lofton. There's no guarantee money on his deal next year. It's a $3 million cut, whatever. I mean, it's not even that now because the year's midway through or coming halfway. And so I feel fairly certain that you're going to keep Bismack Biyombo, and that is an easy cut of Kenny Lofton Jr. But after that, you have the decisions to make on who you're going to keep, right? Are you going to, because, if you want to keep Jalen Noel, your bottom ringers after that are Jake LaRavia, John Conchar. I mean, I'd say that's probably your 2 bottom guys, right? I mean, and it's like, Jake LaRavia is a obvious, we're pulling the plug. We missed on that. And John Conchar just signed a 4-year deal, $6 million a piece, $20 million deal. That's a lot of dead money. Like,
yeah, it is. You can't cut him.
And they're not cutting John Conchar. No. They will not take that amount of dead money on. I can tell you right now. I don't work at the Grizzlies front office, but I will tell you right now that will not happen. Right? No. It won't happen. And so it's a little like, do you want to cut Jake LaRavia when he barely played? I just don't think they're ready to give up on that either. And that,
and he's a $4 million cap. Oh, I'm sorry. His contract is $4 million next year as well, and this year.
Yes.
So
he would have dead money next year too. Yes.
Yeah, that dead money is crazy. But you're looking at Jalen Noel. The timeline kind of works weirdly, like very, very weird, for the fact that he ends up being his last day is the 14th that he can be under contract. Well, as some people know, people that sign contracts in the offseason, the December 15th is the time of they can actually be traded then. So you can't be traded all the way up until December 15th. So literally, like, his expires on the 14th, and they can make a trade, which could allow them to sign him the next day. And so I would say if that does happen, it's going to be, hey, your contract's up. Here's an under the table, like, hey, we're going to sign you. Give me 24 hours or something. And they have a game that day against the Rockets, weirdly enough. And so who knows how this is going to happen, but I will say that it is at home. So it's less that, hey, he didn't travel with the team or something like that. We don't have to worry about that. But there will be the fact that there should be something that happens. If they're going to keep Jalen Noel, something will have to happen on the 15th. If not, he's probably going to get picked up by somebody else on another 10-day or whatever it might be. Like, I would expect him to be good enough of what he's shown with the Grizzlies to be able to go play somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, he's good enough to be on any roster as your 15th man, and if the Grizzlies do sign him, to be clear, that's what he will become when this team is fully healthy. He will become the John Contras of the world, where he's your 11-12 guy. But that's a better 11-12 guy, right? Like he may not play a lot, but if you do need him to play, he can step in and play, and he's shown that. And I think you're right. I think if the Grizzlies don't pick him up, he will go somewhere. And so it is, yes, that December 15th is like the soft launch for trade deadline or for trades, just because there are so many players in this league that get signed that they can't get traded. And so it really makes it difficult to do any trades without those guys being available. And so, yes, that is the soft launch December 15th of this is the kind of when you start to see some trades start to really happen. And so I do expect the Grizzlies to do a 2-for-1. I would expect them to be looking to trade a John Conchar and a Zaire Williams and a Jake LaRavia. I do expect them to try to move those guys off the roster. I just think that, we can see it in the play, right? We can see it. If you're not getting minutes right now as a player on this roster, and it is a tough sign about you as a player, because right now this roster sucks on the back end, right? Again, we're talking about a 10-day guy and what we should do with him, and two guys playing, so that's kind of my indication of like, yeah, they may have not given up on these guys, but if they can find a trade that makes sense for them, they're going to do it. Because like I said, if you're not getting time on this roster, then you're not going to get time on any roster. So that's tough.
Real quick on the Contra thing, a team to watch, in my opinion, is the Indiana Pacers. Send him out there. They can send you back maybe a second-round pick for him. I think he actually could be good on that team because they do have some offense. They do have some good guys, but I think they do need a little bit of help with rebounding, doing the little things. I think he could actually be good, and they have cap space. I don't think you have to do a 2-for-1. I think you send him there, second-round pick, whatever. And I think that's you wipe your hands, call it a day.
Yeah, I think that becomes a question when the Grizzlies, when the Grizzlies do make a trade, is value, right? And I talk about it on the show all the time, is it just takes, it's not just do we trade them, it is who you traded them to, why would they do that trade, what do they get? And I think a lot of these guys, Zaire, Jake, John Conchar, I think John Conchar are probably better than those because he's shown he's proven he can be an effective player in this league on the right team, under the right scheme. But, people like Jake and people like Zaire is, what's the value? Are you sending a second-round pick or are you giving a second-round pick? And that thing that just really depends on the team, right? That really depends on if that team thinks, oh, well, it's a little like the girlfriend who's got a bad boyfriend, I can change him kind of situation, right? Like I can change Zaire Will. I mean, if he just comes over here, come to me, Papa. I can change him. He can be better with me. And so I firmly believe that cannot happen with Jake LaRavia because he's not a good NBA player. But hey, actually, you know what? I take that back. He's a great NBA player. If anybody's watching, I know the front offices are watching. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's a question for those trades as well is value and what you're sending, what you're getting. But last person they probably have to make a decision on will be Vince Williams Jr. Not too much of a decision, not right now.
Not right now. No.
He's on a 2-way contract. We talked about this before when people were clamoring for Jacob Gillard. He's on a 2-way for a reason, right? The only time they have to worry about this is when they get to the playoffs, which is why they converted Vince Williams or Kenny Lofton Jr.'s contract last year, is because they wanted to play in the playoffs, and you cannot play 2-ways in the playoffs as on your regular roster. But that's a long way from now, and we don't know if that's going to happen. So again, Vince Williams Jr., this is probably going to be his last 2-way though. This is his third year at the Hustle. Doubt he comes back. I think if he goes anywhere, it's going to be, he probably goes to Europe. If he realizes he's not going to get a contract now, that's a guy maybe he probably just moves on. So I do think you have to make a decision on Vince Williams Jr. I just don't think you have to make it anytime soon. I think you can make that next May.
Well, no, he has 50 games that he can play for the Grizzlies. 50 games he can be active for.
Correct. Yes.
And so,
but I just don't think I don't think you'll hit that at all. Like just being once Jog is back, that's a lot of games.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know how many he's been active for so far.
Every game this season, I'd imagine. Him and Jake Gilliard 100% had been active for every game. I don't think that matters. I think it really depends on if he can get into the rotation and stay. Because if you look at the rotation, you have Ja, Bane, Jaren, Smart, Biyombo. And then if you're talking about a backup of Rose, Luke, Santi, Roddy, X, that's a 10. And so can he break in and move out Roddy? Can he break in and move out, maybe get some of Rose's minutes? I don't know. I don't think so. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's. I guess my perspective. I think they can kick that can down the road a bit, and they don't have to be pressing to try to figure out who we're going to cut, or whatever. To try to that's not an issue. If he's not going anywhere, he's on your 2A. He's under contract. He is under contract for your ball club. Yes, it's at the 2A, but he is under contract for your club. So I just you can kick that can down the road to February and figure out what you want to do then, at the trade deadline. So the other guy we did talk about, you mentioned just real quick, was with David Roddy. David Roddy's not going anywhere. If they trade David Roddy, I think that will be a mistake. He has shown real flashes this year. I think he is a real NBA player. I think he has a lot of growing to do, but I think he's playing too many minutes for what he probably is skill level right now. But I do think he's a real NBA player, and I do think he's worth keeping, and I do think he could be a role player. I think he is John Contra who shoots better.
Yeah,
that's what I think. He is all the things you like about John Contra, the defense and the rebounding and all that stuff, and the kind of the grittiness. But he also can shoot the ball and he has some offense. And I think it makes a John Contra on this team very redundant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think Vince Williams is more of the upgraded Conchar. But yes, I do like Roddy. I think he has a spot on this team. He just has to find it, like his niche. Like, what is this one thing he's good at? Because it hasn't been team defense. He's decent on man-to-man defense. He's not a great rebounder. He's an okay shot, a shot maker. There's so many average things he does. I think he needs to hone in on a couple and then be really good at that. Because right now he's just doing a little bit of everything okay. He could just be really good in some areas, and I think that'd help him.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, right next to like I said, he's playing too many minutes for what he is. What his skill level is right now. And this team, he should be playing 10 minutes, spot minutes a game, and getting that experience, and then maybe you every year he comes along more and more. So let's take another quick break. We'll be right back on the other side. We're running late, but we'll do a next quick segment on what we think the Grizzlies' ways to win are.
Seth Hennigan just still he
doesn't look himself.
He just doesn't in the big moments. He's not making the plays that have to be made. If you look at the raw stats, they're not terrible, but the 2 interceptions.
Yeah,
and he fumbled twice. They didn't lose those fumbles, but 2 fumbles and 2 interceptions. One of them coming at a terrible time on a 4th down. Late in the game when Memphis really needed to put points on the board. But I just don't think Seth is playing well enough to elevate this team.
Right.
I think he's playing well enough for Memphis to be fine. But as far as for them to do something special and to elevate this team, he's just not playing like that.
Tune in to On the Bluff with Christian Fowler and Gabe Kuhn every Tuesday at 12 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Kenny, there are certain guys in the NBA that are enigmatic players. They're going to be appealing to a large fan base. But when you have guys like that, who like Ja Morant, who have off-court issues he's had, Kyrie Irving who has had the things he's had, the NBA doesn't particularly like the fact that those guys are larger than life. If I'm the NBA, if I'm ESPN, who of course are working together on all this stuff, I'm going to start telling you who you need to like. And it's going to be a different type of guy to kind of play off of the guys that are going to be there anyway. Let me put these squeaky clean image guys that we want to put in front of you up there as well to kind of counteract some of the stuff we get with the guys that we don't have any control out of. So let me put the Tyrese Halliburtons in front of you. Let me put the Shai Gilgeous-Alexanders in front of you, the Josh Giddeys. Let me force these guys in front of you, not particularly on national television games, but let me just kind of create these little sub agendas with these guys to kind of make them those second tier stars that we're gonna like put out in front as well. Like, they're doing this on purpose, man. Like, if anybody can't see this, like, come on, man. Do not sit there and tell me that you really think that Tyrese Halliburton is a top 20 player in the NBA.
Tune in to The Anthony Sane Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Welcome back to the Daily Grind, a daily show right here talking about the Memphis Grizzlies every single day on Bluff City Media. Last segment of the show, and since we're already late, we'll be quick. But every week or so, we talk about how many wins we think the Grizzlies might have until Ja comes back. So this is that little idea. We have, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 more games.
7. Yep.
7 more games
Oh,
before
six,
Ja comes back. 6 more
Six.
games. 1,
Six.
2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 6. He comes back on the 19th, my birthday. Just saying. If you want to give me a present, you can. I accept all monetary gifts. I digress. Enough about my birthday. I will be very old. I'll be 38 this year. So old.
So old.
Getting old. They got the Detroit Pistons. They got the Houston Rockets twice. Timberwolves, the Mavs, and the Thunder. They play the Pistons on tomorrow night at 7.
Yeah.
Of those 6 games, how many do they think we are W's? The Rockets are at Rockets and then back home on the Rockets. Not back to back, but close, 2 days apart.
All right. Well, answer me this question. How many games until Ja gets back do we have on Wednesday?
We have 2 Wednesday games.
Sounds like 2 wins to me. Wednesdays are for winning. That's what we do. We've already started. I've already said it. Wednesdays are for winning. So I think we win the next 2 Wednesdays.
That's 2 right there. That's at the Pistons. Would definitely think they can win that, and at the Rockets, I think they can win. I can think they can win both those games. And the Mavs, if they maybe they'll be shorthanded again. Who knows?
Luke
I
is
doubt
back.
it. Luke is back. I think those are probably losses against the Timberwolves and against the Mavs. The Thunder also probably an L.
Yeah.
That's at the Thunder, and that is the day before he gets back. He plays at the Pelicans first day back. I think they grab 2 wins. I think it's going to be hard to win both those games against the Rockets. I think you split one of those and you beat the Pistons, and you're sitting at what 7 wins when Ja gets back.
Yep.
You know, I don't think that's. I think that might be the best you can hope for. I think. I mean, obviously, if we're hoping for stuff, we could just win all of them. If that's the best we can hope for, I guess that's not true. But like, that's not the best I can hope for. But I think that's the most realistic situation for the Grizzlies is to get those 7 wins. And you know, you're 7 and something, and Utah and Golden State, and one of those games is against Houston. You know that Houston only has 8 wins right now.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of right back in that picture of getting to the play-in, and you know, if Ja gets back, and I think you can start stringing some wins together. I mean, obviously, I think we said that the first segment is the problem with this team is offense, and he does fix that part of it. He will definitely fix.
Well, if they do go 7-18, Ja and Jenkins both have been winning at a 60-ish percentage. So let's give them 60% win percentage. There's 57 games remaining. 60% win percentage gives them a record of 34-23. You add the 7-18 record that you already should have, you're 41-41. You should be able to get to the 10th spot at minimum, if not maybe the 9th spot. But any extra win, that's why wins are so crucial, because they do already win at a 60% win rate. So if for some reason they can figure out a way to just get a little bit, man, they could actually be just those little wins. I don't think people understand a 43 and 39 or something like that. You know, just anything that you could do to get a little bit more wins, one here, one there, are so big when you're starting off, you know, 7-18. Like that's tough.
Let's see. The 41 wins would be good enough for the 9th seed last year. Wow. The ninth place. So last year in the Western Conference would have been good for 9th place, and only because the 8 and 7 had 42 wins and 6 had 43 wins. So
math
really, like between 5 and 10, there were only a difference of 4 wins, 44 through 40. So, you know, I think that puts you in a great spot, and I think Ja will come back to prove a point, and I think that bodes well for the Grizzlies. Ja coming back being very angry. So,
angry Ja's good job.
Angry Ja's good job. I think that bodes well. All right, that's going to be it for us for the daily grind right here every single day at 9:00. We'll be back tomorrow. Maybe Luke will be back. He said he's got the flu, so I've been telling him to stay home, get better, rest up, and we got it. But you know, he might be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be back with the preview for the Pistons game as well as some other nuggets. Stay tuned for that, and we'll see you then.